Good morning, everyone. I think we're going to begin. Thank you all for coming this morning, and thank you to Attorney General Tong for being with us here today. I'm so happy to be here with my fellow representatives, Meskers and Hector Arzeno, and our first selectman, Milo, and Sergeant Reeves of the Greenwich Police Department, who they are available to answer questions. I'm Rachel Khanna. I'm one of your state representatives. I represent the 149th district. My father suffered from Alzheimer's, and it was a decline over the course of about 10 years. We were fortunate to be there to take care of him, but I saw firsthand how vulnerable he was physically and mentally. And had we not been there, how easy it would have been for someone to take advantage of this situation. Similarly, when he ultimately had to go into a nursing home, the fact that we were there advocating for him made such a difference. And the fact is that Connecticut's population is aging. It's the 7th oldest state in the nation, and roughly 16% of the state's population is age 65 or older. And this is part of a national trend. And add to that the fact that 7% of older adults had incomes which fell below the census poverty level, with an additional 8% of seniors having incomes between 100% to 149% of the threshold. That means there's a large population that's at risk of being abused financially, emotionally, and physically. So it's critical that we address the issue of elder justice. And now I'll turn it over to our Attorney General. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Good morning. So this is my first time in the Black Box Theater. I don't know where we got the name from, but it's great to be with all of you. And first of all, let me thank Representative Khanna for putting this together. I was in the State House for 12 years. I don't know how long Fred and I served for together, but okay, a long time. And it's good to see my former partner in Greenwich. I live in Stamford. And so, and regionally, we all work as a team. Stamford, Greenwich have always been very close as a team. I don't know about Buchanan and Darien, but Stamford, Greenwich have also been very close. I shouldn't have said that because we're on a Zoom right now. Just so everybody knows, there's a Zoom. I think it's running. So if you ask questions, you'll be on the Zoom. But let me just say that Rachel has already made a huge impact in the state legislature on these issues and so many others. And so you're really lucky to have such a strong voice representing the 149. The other two guys aren't bad either. Steve is now the dean of the delegation, right? Steve Meskers?
I unfortunately am, yes,
the
dean of the delegation.
Dean of the delegation, and Hector, obviously, the leader of the Three Amigos, Hector. I know that Senator Fazio was invited and couldn't make it today. But again, really glad to be with all of you. And Sergeant, thank you for representing the police department. So I'm just gonna, spend hopefully 10, 15 minutes and not go on for too long, and then take some questions and talk about elder justice issues and share with you some thoughts about what you can do to protect yourselves. I'm really lucky that I get to start my day this morning in Greenwich, which means I didn't have to go to Hartford first thing, so I got to wake up a little late. And I live in North Stamford. I represented the 147, which is right next to the 149. It was configured a little differently back then, but again, good to be home this morning down here So let's talk about elder justice issues and issues important to seniors and important to you particularly in terms of protecting all of you from scams and various other frauds and abuse that unfortunately are directed and target older Americans. So I'm going to start with a question. Why do you think that people target seniors when they perpetrate scams? The police cannot answer that question.
Because they're gullible.
Gullible, trusting is what I would say. Trusting, right? And some people have said when I've done these forums that you come from a generation where you're more trusting of your neighbors and your friends and even people that call you on the phone. Yes, that's the answer, because you have money, right? Seniors have money, even if it feels like you don't have money. Your 20-year-old son, daughter, grandson has no money, right? College students have no money. People just starting out, state legislators have no money, so they don't target us. Yeah, young people don't have money. Older people hopefully have saved up a little bit and are prepared for retirement. And even if you're not, you have a steady stream of income, hopefully from Social Security or some kind of pension or retirement plan. That's why they target older Americans. There are so many different scams. We get them every single day. They come through this thing, right? They come through landline. I still have a landline. They come through email, text, on the internet. So what are some scams that people tend to see? Okay, that's the one that everybody wants to talk about, the grandparent scam. Everybody knows what the grandparent scam is? Okay, you don't know what the grandparent scam is. You're the subject of the grandparent scam. So what happens is somebody calls your grandmother, your grandfather, and what's your name again?
Juliana.
They say Juliana's in trouble, right? She's studying in Italy, and she got arrested. And not that Juliana would ever get arrested, but Juliana got arrested, and in Italy, we can get her out for 20 grand. So wire us 20 grand right away and we get Juliana out. Okay, this is one of the most common scams. And how do they perpetrate this scam? Well, it's really easy to get information about Juliana on the internet. It's really easy if you follow someone's social media or their Instagram. That's what the kids are using these days. If you use Facebook, you're out of date. It's Instagram. And you can see that she's traveling, she's dating somebody, she just broke up with somebody, all of these details are on the internet. And the scammers scour the internet for this information and they use that information against you, right? What's really scary today is 2 years ago, it was just they could pick up information and make it sound like they knew Juliana and had information that nobody else would know if they didn't know her. Nowadays, you got to watch out for artificial intelligence, right? You got to watch out for somebody using a computer to reproduce her voice, so it sounds like it's Juliana calling, even for a brief second. So, how do you prepare yourself and protect yourself against the grandparent scam? So, a couple of things. Number one is know that it's coming, right? And that if you're an older American, somebody might target you. The second thing you can always do is don't pick up calls you don't recognize. I know that's hard because, again, I also come from a generation where I remember when long distance calls were expensive and you had to watch how long you stayed on the phone with your grandparents. But these days, you don't have to pick up every call. Use your caller ID. Sometimes you'll get a message that says potential spam. That's technology that I and other state attorneys general forced the telecommunications companies to use It's a free technology that warns you if it's a bad call. But don't pick up the call if you don't recognize the number. Don't stay on the phone, okay? Sometimes when I do these forums, I get a wise guy or two, and it's usually guys. I get a wise guy or two who say, oh, I like to stay on the phone and play with them. I know they're scammers, but I like to try to scam them back. Don't do that, okay? Why don't you do that? Because number one, they know you pick up now, right? If you pick up and talk to them, they know you pick up and you talk to them, which means you'll get more calls. If you've ever noticed, if you pick up a scam call, all of a sudden your volume ticks up. It's because they're tracking that. Number two is you don't know what they're doing when you're on the phone. They might be doing something technologically to gain access to your technology, right? And number three is you're probably giving up information, even though you don't think you're giving up information. So you're telling them things, you're giving them your voice that they can record, but you're probably giving up information that you didn't think you were giving up, but they're gathering information about you. So a couple of ways you can protect yourself also from this specific scam. Number one is always have cell numbers for all of your close relatives so that if Juliana calls or somebody says Juliana's in trouble, you can hang up and call Juliana. Or you can call Juliana's mom or dad, right? That is a really important thing to do to protect yourself. Here's another tip that may seem a little extreme, if not a little sad that we have to do this in this day and age, but it's not a big deal. This year at Thanksgiving or Hanukkah or Christmas or over the New Year's, if you're at the dinner table, come up with a code word, okay? Black box, right? And everybody in the family just knows if I'm in trouble and I gotta call you, I'm gonna say black box so you know it's me. Again, is that ridiculous? Sure. Is it terrible that we have to do that? Maybe. But is it a huge imposition? No, right? You can totally do that. So those are some pointers on how to protect yourself against the grandparent scam. Don't ever wire money. Don't send cash to somebody you don't know. And don't send gift cards. Yes, this happens. People get talked into sending gift cards. Now, I know everybody here in this room is thinking, I would never fall for that. It's never gonna happen to me. And why is he telling me this? There's a scam for everyone, okay? The second you think, I'm too smart and I'm too sophisticated to get scammed, you're gonna get scammed, right? So just know that everybody can have a bad day. Everybody can just not be in the right place at any given moment. And if they catch you just not in the right place, I mean, you can imagine it's easy to think about how you might be a little estranged from your son or your daughter. So you're looking for, some signs of that relationship getting better, and you get a call from your granddaughter and you're waiting for that call and you really want it to be her, you really want to help her. You can imagine situations where you would be particularly vulnerable. My mom, I won't tell you the whole story, my mom, Nancy Tong, is the toughest, savviest immigrant businesswoman you'll ever meet. She and my dad ran a Chinese restaurant, they owned some real estate, they rented apartments, they're super sophisticated. But she got scammed for $5,000. Okay, actually, I said I wasn't gonna tell you how, I'll tell you how because it's important. So she got taken for a classic scam called the overpayment scam. So what happened was she was renting an apartment in the Hartford area and somebody emails from England, okay, and says, I'd love to rent your apartment. She says, fine, send me the security deposit. He sends her a check for like $5,000, okay, and the security deposit was like $2,000. So she gets this check and it's for too much money. And she emails the guy back and says, hey, you sent me too much money. You're only supposed to send me $2,000, just send me $5,000. He said, don't worry about it. My mistake, I just wasn't paying attention. I heard you wrong or something. And so why don't you just deposit that check? Why don't you keep $500 for your trouble and just send me back $2,500? Send me the difference. So my mom, being trusting, she wired the guy $2,500, okay? She goes to deposit the check, what happened? Check was back. Happens all the time. My mom, as tough and savvy a business person as you will find, but there's a scam for everybody. And if you're in a hurry or if you're busy, it's easy to fall for one. Here's Sandra Arenas, she's an associate attorney general in my office, who's in charge of a lot of these issues. So here's one that Sandy is working on. A guy in the Hartford area needed some help with his computer. Something was happening with his computer. I mean, all of us, right, need IT now in this day and age. At some point, I'm the IT guy in my house, which consists of me pulling things out and plugging them back in and hoping that it works better. So this guy went on the Google machine and found somebody to fix his computer, and they did it, they did a good job, and the computer starts working again. And they charged him $300. Great. Somebody calls back a few days later and they say, hey, we're just starting our business. We'd love a positive review. And so if you'll speak well of us, we'll give you your $300 back. Great, who doesn't want $300 back? But in order for us to give you $300, you gotta give us your bank account information. So we go wire it to you, okay? What does he do? He gives them all this information. Then they call back and they say, holy smokes, we were supposed to send you $300, we sent you $20,000 by mistake. And now this guy, smart guy, is like, that sounds fishy. I'll call you back. Hangs up, checks his bank account. Sure enough, in checking, there's $20,000 that wasn't there the day before. And he says, oh, geez, they really did screw up. Sends them the $20,000. He discovered after that they had gained access to his accounts. They had moved $20,000 from savings to checking. And he sent his own money back. This happens, by the way, not just to the thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars. People get scammed for hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. What do you think the number one scam, you're gonna laugh, what do you think the number one scam facing older Americans in this country is? Number one, by far. Bill Brad, what's the number one scam? Social Security, that's a good one. I didn't touch on that because I told you my mom's story. No, you're gonna get calls from the IRS, from the Department of Revenue Services, from the Greenwich tax collector, thank you, Bill Brad. From Eversource, asking you for money. No legitimate government agency, federal or state or local or utility is gonna ask you for money on the spot, okay? And if charities ask you for money on the spot, what I always say is, don't give money in response to a solicitation. If you're worried that you owe money on a bill, hang up the phone, call Eversource yourself, call the tax collector. Hey, do I owe money? Okay, if you want to give to a charity, you can give and you should give, but do it on your own initiative, right? On your own action. Don't respond to a text or email or phone call. What's the number one scam affecting older Americans? Romance scams. Romance scams. Why? Why? Because it's easy to find out when somebody is single or recently single, right? You just have to go on Facebook and you can see, particularly for older Americans, my husband or wife of 40 years, 50 years passed away, right? And you can see how devastated somebody is. You can also figure out whether they've got money and where they live and what they do, with their free time. There's a lot of information there. There's also people who, after 30 years, finally kick the bastard out, right? Good riddance. I'm free and I'm out and I'm dating and I'm happy, right? We have friends like that, maybe yourself too. And by the way, people date online now, everybody's doing it, all the kids are doing it, and it's great. If you find somebody online, God bless, it's wonderful. Just be careful, okay? And so what are the dead giveaways? Obviously, you're an attractive and handsome man, but somebody who is really attractive and really handsome, and it's like Fabrizio from Italy, right? That's kind of a giveaway that if somebody is unnaturally attractive and wonderful. But again, all of us are vulnerable, and it just depends on the day. And if you're recently single, if you've lost somebody, if you've been looking for somebody for a long time, and somebody shows interest in you, it's easy to overlook a lot of details. The key about romance scams is they have a long tail, right? They can go on for a year, 2 years. People invest a lot of time in these scams. Usually the subject of your affection is overseas, okay? They sound too good to be true. And you've been talking to them for a long time. They reel you in, and you finally have found your soulmate. And then the moment of truth is when they make a plan to get on a plane and come see you, right? Great, you've been dating virtually for 2 years now, and this wonderful person who's your soulmate is going to get on a plane. How do they know you so well? Because they've been scouring the internet for information about you. Okay, they know you love French bakeries, right? And so they pick up all that information, and it feels like they really know you, because they do, because they've been looking for all this information. So they say, I'm going to come see you, and 2 weeks before they're supposed to get on a plane, you get a call. Oh geez, I am going to come see you. I have my plane ticket, but mom is sick. And in my country, you got to pay cash for healthcare, so I need $25,000. And if I could just get $25,000, or I crash my car, right? And I need $25,000 or $50,000 to fix whatever's gone wrong in my life. And if I could do that, I'll get on the plane. And what do people do? They're in this high pressure moment, and they wire the money, or they send gift cards, or do whatever they've been instructed to do. People have lost, again, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars through romance scams. So I know nobody in this room would ever fall for that, but part of the reason why we're telling these stories to people and sharing this information is so that you can share it with your friends and family, and that everybody can protect themselves, okay? Let me pivot for a few minutes. Sorry to go on about scams. Everybody loves to talk about scams. Let me talk for a few minutes about some pretty heavy duty stuff. And that is a broad category we call elder justice. I have Juliana handed out a flyer that has, well, there's a booklet, and then there's also a flyer, I think, with the number for the Elder Justice Hotline. We don't have to write the number down because it's on the flyer, but it's 860-808-5555. What is the purpose of the Elder Justice Hotline? So when I became Attorney General, we got calls, state reps and state senators got calls, I'm sure your first selectman gets calls, and people have all manner of issues with the state government, with federal government, even local government, and they don't know who to call, and sometimes we don't know who to call. And we decided as a member of a coalition of organizations that serve seniors that people need one number. And then if they call that one number, we should be able to help point them in the right direction or get them the help they need. So that's the point. The Elder Justice Hotline, which rings in my office, is one-stop shopping for older Americans in Connecticut. So if you have any question at all, you call us, we try to help you. We're pretty honest about it. If we can't help you, let me get to your questions in a minute. If we can't help you, we'll tell you we can't help you. You know, if you're in a legal dispute with your neighbor, right, over the boundary or over a tree that overhangs your property, I can't get involved in that, right? That's between you guys. But if there's a crime potentially being committed, a fraud being perpetrated against you, if you need access to state services, we can try to help you navigate and figure out where to get that help. So there are two kinds, well, there are many kinds, but there are two major kinds of issues that we encounter. The first, of course, is financial fraud. And this happens far too often in this state and in this country. It's really important to know that most of the time when someone who's over 60 is the victim of a financial fraud, the perpetrator, the person taking advantage of them, is very close to them. 60% of the time, it's a family member, okay? And because of that, they're heavily underreported. So only 1 in 44 cases of financial fraud and abuse, 1 in 44 is reported. Why? Because it's your son or your daughter, or your spouse, or a niece or a nephew, or grandchild. And you may depend on them, right? You love them, you care for them, and you don't want to call the police, right? And that's a natural instinct. And we've all heard and seen this. We've all heard this story. We've seen this before. You don't know Freddie. He's had a little trouble, right? He's finally got his act together. He's finishing school. He's got a job. He just needed a couple $1,000. And a couple $1,000 became $5,000 and $10,000, and before you know it, you're spending down your life savings. Okay, so if you or anybody that you know is a victim of financial fraud or a financial abuse, call the hotline. Okay, if you don't want to give your name, just call and start the conversation, because Sandy has people that you can talk to confidentially, resources that we can put you in touch with so that you can get the help that you need. And if you know somebody, neighbor, somebody that you do, yoga with or Pilates or whatever, and you know that they're getting taken advantage of, encourage them to call. Or call us and say, I've got this friend, what do I do? And we can try to get a counselor to help you navigate that. The amount of money that's taken from seniors is staggering. It's $36.5 billion estimated a year that's taken from people over 60. That number in Connecticut is only going up, and it's going up rapidly, and it's in the tens of millions of dollars. I want to close with an even heavier issue, and that's physical abuse. So nobody wants to talk about this. I don't have to tell you. This is a very, very difficult subject to talk about. The incidence of physical abuse of people over 60 is also increasing rapidly. COVID did not help. Okay, the same rules apply. It's usually somebody close to the victim, usually a close family member, son, daughter, niece, nephew, sometimes the spouse. By the way, we're wearing purple today because this is Domestic Violence Awareness Day, and this is part of that. This is part of domestic violence. And again, heavily underreported for the same reasons, because it's painful, it's embarrassing. You don't want to report somebody that you lean on for, maybe this person does your grocery shopping for you, or they drive you around, or they manage your finances, or do whatever on your behalf. They're your caretaker. And that's why only 1 in 23 cases of abuse, physical abuse, get reported. So again, call the number. If you're a victim, the first thing you should do if you're a victim of physical abuse and financial abuse, but physical abuse, you should call the police. Okay, that's number 1. But if you're reluctant to do that, call us. Again, you don't have to give your name. Just start the conversation. If you know somebody in your community, a friend who's suffering from physical abuse, call, get them on the phone, or ask for resources or help as to how you might be able to help them. And please do what you can to socialize this number to people, to spread it around so that people know that they have some place to call. There's actually a unit in the Department of Social Services called Elderly Protective Services, and they have the authority to investigate and to work with law enforcement, and if necessary, take action against somebody who's committing physical abuse. So, a lot to take in. There's a lot of information in that booklet. I will just close by saying, everybody here, I know, is smart, savvy, capable, but just remember, all of us have weaknesses, we know that. All of us can be vulnerable at any time, and there's no shortage of creativity in terms of criminals and scammers. Like, they're always thinking up something new every single day. So just, if you feel like you're getting pressured, if you feel like you might be getting scammed, if you're being sold something that sounds too good to be true, or you're not quite sure what's going on, slow it down. Slow it down. And don't give money in response to anybody asking you for money. And if you feel like you've been a victim, reach out to the police department or reach out to us. With that, Representative, should I turn it back to you? And I'm happy to take questions, or does anybody want to say anything before we take questions?
Yeah. Hi. So I'm one of your state representatives, the senior or the dean of delegation. You know, I've been scammed 2 or 3 times, not to full completion, but pretty darn close. I was on a trading floor on Wall Street. Those who know me know I have sharp elbows. One day I sat down and I got a phone call, a phone call from Eversource. And believe it or not, my desk is not the most organized place on God's earth. And I have missed, either my credit card is expired or I forgot to send the check, and I've gotten the late notice for cutoff. That's happened 2 or 3 times. The last time was basically because I had an expired credit card on the automatic pay weekend. I walked through the entire process. I got this. The first thing I did was curse and think, what a moron, I haven't paid my bill. I was on the phone reading my credit card number down to the CV number on the back when the person on the other side said, it's good you're paying, we will be there in 20 minutes to cut off your electricity. And at that point, the light bulb went on. I said, these people have never been to my house in 20 minutes of my life. And I hung on 2 seconds before that, right? The second time I got an email from a friend saying, Steve, I'm out of the country and my nieces have birthdays. I need your help. Can you get me some gift cards? This went back and forth. You're right. I played with this one. I went back and forth with 5.
Don't do that.
Thank you. Now I know. I started with, you think 40's enough? Because they said they needed 40. And I said, how about if I get 3 gift cards? So it worked out to the point where they wanted $200 in gift cards, which they were convinced I had just bought, in a delayed process of over a month of playing. Up until the end, when they said, can you please scratch off the numbers? And at that point I said, golly gee whiz, I dropped them in your mailbox. Of course they were furious. But they will take you down that road. My mother, who's now in town, is 92, she'll be 93 in March. What I see all the time is text messages saying, your Amazon account has expired. Your Netflix account has expired. And then click on the link and provide all of your data. And the page will open up into a perfect fake Amazon account. And people turn over their data all the time. All of us are subject to believe that what comes in print is credible or comes in text. None of that ever happens. Do not give up your Netflix account because it goes to a credit card. Your Amazon account because it goes to a credit card. Those scams, they're coming out furiously. So I advise you on all of those issues. And lastly, from a personal piece of information, a lot of you will have long-term health care accounts, or long-term care insurance. I'm on the insurance committee. In addition to having trouble with the rising costs, etc., there seems to be a pronounced intent to slow down the payments and claims. I had a constituent come to me with this problem, and I had to go out with a blowtorch to the lobbyists for the insurance industry to say, if this isn't processed in the next week, my next public meeting, I will start with the name of your company and the delays in the processing. And all of a sudden, the processing comes up. So I'm gonna tell you that if you have issues, I'm on the insurance committee, please don't all call me tomorrow, but between myself, I can guarantee the Attorney General, I can guarantee the Insurance Commission. If you have trouble with your insurance coverage and negotiated issues where they're not honoring what's going on, we also have a healthcare advocate in the state. So there's a number of help desks. I think probably at the end of this, Rachel, who's more organized than I, we will put together some of those call numbers for the healthcare advocate, I think the Attorney General's number, and the
There
other.
is a form.
Okay, so
outside.
you have all those? Okay.
Yeah.
And that's really super important. That's what I like to do.
Good morning, everyone. And I am Hector Arzeno, and thank you very much for being with us. I couldn't help it but to think about my mother, my grandparents, and how much we all, where we come from, and how much we all owe them, and you. And also, I wanted to say thank you for being here. Thank you.
Before we open it up to questions, I wanted to give Sergeant Reeves the opportunity, if you want to say something that you've been seeing in Greenwich, specifically.
Sure. Well, thank you. So thanks for, can you guys all hear me? Do I need a microphone? Do I need the microphone?
Oh, true.
Oh, sorry. So thanks so much for having me. Just a couple of quick numbers just to give you an idea of the problem. So here in Greenwich, just to give you an idea, we have last year to date, we had 150 fraud cases brought to our attention and 230 identity theft cases. So this is a problem for even a community the size of ours. You can imagine what it's like in the bigger cities. As far as the rom-coms that Attorney General had mentioned before, one comes to mind, and you hit the point right on the head. They are generally always international to make it difficult to get a hold of them. And just to drive the point home, just remember this. This was a retired teacher who lost $600,000 to fraud. It was her entire life savings. When we did the investigation, and just to give you an idea of what we do, the investigations typically involve multiple search warrants for the IP addresses and following the money, and they always end up at an IP address somewhere in Asia or Africa. And at that point, the buck stops. There's nothing else we can do at that point. So just keep in mind that if you lose that kind of money, you're probably not going to get it back. So really pay attention to everything that everybody is saying here today. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. I get the scam phone calls just like everybody else. And number one, that grandparent scam, police departments nowhere in the country will ever call you up and ask you for bond money over the phone. So if you ever get that, even if it sounds like your loved one's voice, it's a scam. And what you have to remember now with the AI and the avatars, right, the deep fakes, they're getting really, really good. And what they're doing now is when they call you and you just merely pick up the phone and say hello, they've got your voice. Then what they'll do is research on that particular relative in your family. They'll call you up and play that hello. And that'll kind of get you down the path of believing that what they're saying is true and they actually have your relative. And the underlying theme with all of these frauds is that they play on your emotions, right? The rom-cons, right? The romance cons, the relative cons, they're playing on your emotions, right? The older people, the elderly, the mature people, like we were saying before, have the money and you are also trustworthy. You have to change that a little bit. And that's the way we do that is by having meetings like this and bringing it out to the forefront. And just real quick, I'll touch on domestic violence. This is the same way we're going to break the cycle of domestic violence is by getting that word out. Domestic Violence Awareness Month, support the YWCA. That's our domestic abuse service provider. Yes, ma'am.
Do you know the details of that $600,000 scam?
Well, I can't release that because that was an investigation we did, but yeah, I have the details. I just can't give them to you. Is there any other questions before I turn it back over to the panel? Yes, ma'am.
Do you want to hear that someone has been enticed In other words, a few years ago, I'm a social worker in town, we understood that if a person felt vulnerable and got multiple phone calls, that I directed them to call the police to let them know. Do you want to know that, or do you want to know when they've been taken? Do you know
So
what I
there's
mean?
really not much we can do with the attempts. Really, we want to focus our resources, right? Because there's a finite amount of resources that we have to spend on these, right? Because this costs time, money, resources. So what we have to do is triage these cases as they come up. And we use what's called solvability factors. So when people call us and say, hey, I've been the victim of this scam, they'll come in, they'll make that initial complaint, and we'll triage that by looking to see what solvability factors we have available. And really what that's a fancy word saying clues. What clues do we have? What nuggets do we have to trace it down? And if there's really not much, which an attempt like that, there really wouldn't be, there's really not much we'd be able to do. I don't mind fielding those phone calls though, because every one of those phone calls is an opportunity to educate the public on what the newest scam might be, right? Because every time we figure out a scam, there's another one around the corner. So we figured out the grandparent scam, then they came out with the IRS scam. And then the latest scam that was going around the Greenwich Police Department was a workers' comp scam. So what we were finding out that we would get phone calls from workers' comp in Connecticut saying, hey, you didn't fill out such and such paperwork, or there's missing information on your compensation form. And I go, what, compensation? I'm not on workers' comp, I'm in the office right now. And we found out that there was a compensation scam going on. In fact, I myself was the victim of a scam. Well, I wasn't the victim of the scam, I was the target of the scam, because a lot of our names are on the Town of Greenwich website for the police department. So somebody took my name off of there and was pretending to be Sergeant Brent Reeves, calling people saying, hey, so-and-so is in custody, we need bond money. So it happens even, at the local level like that.
So do you want those phone calls? Because we get upset, older people on the phone, and you want to do something with that information, which is understandable. And my thinking is, yeah, you need to know that there's a new angle.
I would certainly say to have them call,
Okay.
because the volume that we're gonna receive here is not so much that would overwhelm us. So have them call anyway, and we're certainly happy to give them advice, triage it on the phone, and direct them to the appropriate resource. Yes, ma'am.
Has the Greenwich Police Department have to expand this department? Because this is a new avenue of crime for you. And you have to be very, like you said, they keep coming and coming. We've got AI coming.
Right.
So have you, in the department, you have to be very knowledgeable about it?
So that's a great question. We haven't had to expand because unfortunately fraud has been going on for as long as there's been money.
Do you want to expand?
I'm the Greenwich Police. I would love if we could have more officers, right? So yeah, absolutely. Let's get Selectman Camillo on the phone. But yeah, we would love to expand, but of course, again, there's a finite amount of resources. We're holding our own right now, and again, the reason we can do that is because we're technically savvy enough to know there are some cases that we can take and go forward with, and other ones that really there's nothing that we're going to be able to do with. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, this is not directed at Greenwich in particular, thank you. But first of all, I appreciate the fact that there's now a single number to call. We in our family are in the midst of a very difficult situation with my stepdad, who was named out of an enormous amount of money. And we are running into a very different experience where we did go to the police. The police said, not our responsibility. This is not here. This is in northeastern Connecticut. They booted us over to the state troopers. The state troopers are doing their best. They filed a report, but the bank is refusing to speak with the state troopers, so we can get no coordination there. And I'd like to know what kind of regulatory systems are in place to enforce any kind of laws that you have existing, and how can we hold the bank?
So, good question. It's tough. I can't speak to what the police department in whatever town it is did or did not do, and I can't speak to what the troopers are doing. I'm encouraged to hear the troopers are doing as much as they can to be helpful. But let me just say this, if you're having trouble getting information and getting cooperation in terms of trying to get to the bottom of this so that you can try to take action if possible, we can try to intervene there. and if you need someone to call the bank. As the sergeant said, oftentimes, the answer is there's not much the police can do, especially if it's a scammer who's in another part of the world and ran a pretty rudimentary scam over the phone or over email. And once the money is gone to an account overseas, it's very hard for us to recover it. That doesn't mean it never happens. It can happen that we can recover some money, but it's tough. And the best way to protect yourself from scams is not to get scammed in the first place. And I know that sounds trite, but it's true. But yes, if you're having trouble with a financial institution and can't get the information that you need, we can try to help with it.
General, if I might. One of the things I saw as well, it's funny, this created one of my problems in my payment history, was I capped my credit card payments at a maximum amount of $500. And it was an electric bill. And it went to $535, so that month it failed, and all of a sudden I had a backup bill. But you may want to put standing instructions, whether it's on your bank account or your credit cards, which then you'll have to watch, but you can put a standing instruction, like that should not then be violated, whether it's for a check clearing. I'm pretty sure you can have that conversation with your banker to make sure that you don't wake up one day and find $10,000 is missing, right? Or that there is a backup to your phone with a check saying, did you authorize this payment? But you should be sitting down with your banker to ask what controls you have on the flow of money in your accounts. Because we're all going to get this, right?
You should also put a free security freeze on your credit with the 3 major credit reporting bureaus. So Sandy knows this because the Attorney General was the victim of potential scam. So I started getting letters from Bank of America saying your application for a new credit card was not approved. And these were airline branded credit cards. So Bank of America, I guess, does a lot of airline branded cards. So I was getting Allegiant Air, Spirit Air. And the good thing it wasn't approved because they couldn't get all the way there, but they were trying. And so we talked about it, and what I did was I put a freeze on credit checks at all 3 credit reporting bureaus. It's sort of annoying in that if you want to get a new credit card or want to buy a car or get a loan, you have to go unfreeze it, but it's easy to do. So do that, put a freeze on your credit reports.
I might add also that your state representative also might help. We have aides in the offices. I have a case as of last week in the district that I represent, the constituency. He wasn't going anywhere with American Express. So he reached out to us and we saw the drawer. Now we got and looked for someone that within the house had contacts in American Express, so we are helping with the issue. So call any one of us, your state representatives are also there to help if any way we might.
I'd like to address the medical advantage plan, which are heavily advertised and pushed on the older population. And if you read in the New York Times, the trend, there are less people on Medicare now and the medical advantage plan. I've had a personal experience with this where you're offered this plan and they say, oh, well, you get a free podiatry or you get a free hearing and a free eye test. But what you're basically getting is you're getting another layer of people that are getting paid to do something that Medicare is doing already. And they now have the power that if their plan is not accepted in a particular, let's say you're traveling in Arizona and you need to go to the doctor, and they say, well, we don't take this plan, then you can't use Medicare. Because now this company controls Medicare. And if you go to a doctor and you think that this is gonna be covered, and the report, and then the company sends back, well, we don't cover this. Now it's up to you to check to see, does Medicare actually cover it? Am I going to appeal this? What do I need to do? So I really think that this layer that is being imposed on people and who aren't maybe that savvy or educated, I thought I was an educated person, and we signed up for it, and then we discovered afterwards, the first time we went to the doctor, sorry, we don't take this plan. I couldn't even use Medicare, so I was now disconnected from something I paid for my entire working life. So I think this is something that the government, our government representatives need to look into. I don't think these Medicare Advantage plans are of any advantage to us.
About my mother, what happened?
Yeah.
If I could just
And-
may, this is exactly what happened to us. My mother has 4 children. I have my mother now. She had Humana. She really stood by Humana. It's an advantage plan. She came up, she's living in my house. Of course, the Greenwich Hospital emergency room visit. And then we decided that she would live with me. So all of a sudden we had huge bills. And Humana will not cover them. Well, what was the day when you decided that your mother's going to live with you? Was she living with you? Because Humana's only in Virginia, it's not here. And I said, I don't know, we kind of made a collective decision over time. Huge bills that are not being covered. Now, if she just had, now we have just straight Medicare and the Medicare Part S, which means that all of the siblings live in different states. Wherever she is, she's 100% covered. But now we're stuck with these huge Humana bills that we have to somehow fight with Humana to try to get paid. It is such, Medicare Advantage plans are such a rip-off.
They are absolutely a rip-off, and why are they being pushed so heavily?
So let me just close with a couple of thoughts. One is there are tons, it's not just Medicare Advantage plans, there are tons of financial products out there targeted at you, right? There's long-term care, there's home warranties that sound good to, insure your boiler and appliances. There are reverse mortgages, right? All of these things, there's again, no end to the creativity. And at the end of the day, just so we're clear, you've got industries, particularly insurance industry, that are very powerful, and they fight hard against regulation, and they want to be able to offer all of these products. And very often, if they're legal, that's a contract between you and whoever's providing that financial product. And if it's legal, there's not much law enforcement can do about it. So 2 things. One is, yes, state legislators are constantly looking at those issues. That's what the insurance committee is for, okay? And I'm sure that they'll take that feedback back on Medicare Advantage plans and look hard at them. I could imagine further restrictions, and if it gets bad enough, even stronger action than that. If you have a specific problem with a Medicare Advantage plan that you think is unfair and violates what you agreed to, call us, okay? We can try to weigh in. Also, let me just talk about insurance for a second. Health insurance is the most confusing, confounding, mystifying thing, right? And if you should know anything, know that they want it that way, right? They want you to think it's hard and confounding and mystifying, so you won't make a claim and you'll just go away and just pay your premiums. So I get it, we all find ourselves in that situation. If you have issues with insurance and coverage, and if you think it's unfair, not that you just don't like your plan, because if you don't like your plan, I can't do anything about that. But if you feel like you're being denied unfairly, or you're being, frankly screwed by your health insurer, call us, call the number, because we have a team in the office. We can't fix every problem, but sometimes call from the Office of the Attorney General can move the needle, and at least get a live body on the phone to talk it through. And that's Sandy's specialty, is to get people to call us back.
Can we get a campaign with counter information that these are actually disadvantaged plans? Because all you hear about is, oh, how they are now an advantage. We need a campaign to educate people, and I don't hear anything about that.
I'm going to hate this once I say it. So I'm on the insurance committee. Insurance in the United States is like banking was 50 years ago, to the extent that it's regulated at the state level with an insurance commissioner. So I want you both to reach out, both the Attorney General's office, and I would like to get the commentary on the Advantage plans. Because we either have to figure out what we can do on a regulatory framework, what governance at the state level we have for a national Medicare plan, and how they're licensed to sell within Connecticut. And I'll work with you to see what we can do on different forms of legislation. We all sit on committees of cognizance for various problems. And we can introduce legislation, and we can change the world, not necessarily overnight, but I heard you.
One more question.
Thank you very much for this very interesting and informative presentation. I'd just like to touch upon another type of financial abuse that affects elderly people. You know, a lot of people move into their apartments with a reasonable rent. And then they find themselves, when they renew their lease, the rents have gone up 10%, like they have at my place where I live at Greenwich Place. And we actually had Selectman Miller come and address us. And basically he told us there was nothing we could do about this. I think that the town of Greenwich really needs to pass an ordinance that they can cap the amount of money that they can charge you for your new lease. They don't even give us a 1-year lease where I live, it's only 11 months. And at the rate of raising the rent 10% every month, every year, how can senior citizens live in their neighborhood, in their apartments? There's some people living there 20 years, and they're very, they're very involved with their community. So I think that's another type of abuse, even though it's not a scam. It is a scam actually in a way, because you move in there at a certain rent and then they raise you so high. Is there anything that can be done about this?
I think hand it over to the select person, Janice.
So, yeah, I'm Janet Stone McWig, and I serve on the Board of Selectmen, and what we need is a fair rent commission, which we don't have one yet. It's working its way through the RTM, but we will get one. The state asked all municipalities with populations over 25,000 to establish one. We were not going to when this first came out. Our first selectmen said, no, we don't need one, no, thank you. But I did introduce it to the Board of Selectmen. Like I said, we're working our way through it. It's not rent control, but it is a form, because landlords now, they do have recourse, they have the courts, but renters don't. And as you say, we know that something like 30% of our residents rent, and rents are skyrocketing. So this is a forum that would allow renters, if there are egregious rent increases, to bring it forward. We know from other municipalities that already do have a commission that most of these cases are resolved before it goes to the commission. So we don't anticipate that this is going to be somehow onerous to the town.
I understand that Governor Lamont asked for the establishment of these commissions well over a year ago, and I don't understand why it's taking so much time for Greenwich to get one. I mean, I think they're in violation of the law.
Well, we're working on it, yes.
Yeah.
You are absolutely right, we are working on it.
And for the ones serving in the RTM, when the issue comes to the RTM, you will have few votes in favor of that.
There aren't a few votes, no?
No, more than few.
More than-
Count
Well, it's
that
not
here
even
you
a
have
question
some
of voting
already.
for it. I mean, if this is a law, it should have been put into effect a long
I
time ago.
fully agree with you.
You know?
I fully agree
I
with
want
you.
to thank the Attorney General for coming in. I know he has to be somewhere else. I want to thank you all for participating in this. Please feel free to reach out to any of us if you have any additional questions.
And you know what, as a closing comment, as our seniors, you should be able